everyone, and thank you for joining me here on Songbird Collage Arts. So I'm well into my new channel. I'm figuring out some of the lighting issues. We have this orb of light here. I have an overhead light that, unfortunately, that's all I have, just a basic kitchen chandelier. Maybe as my channel progresses, I'll get some better lighting, but I'm going to try to keep the canvas in the middle of the frame to make this particular bright spot a little bit dimmer. Today I'm going to be using a Arteza 9x12 canvas. These canvases are okay. I find that the images take a lot of glue to adhere. To be perfectly honest, the best canvases that I've used are from the dollar store. I did go yesterday to pick up some more, but they didn't have any. So I'm just gonna use with what I have and use a ton of glue. So again, today I'm gonna be using the purple Elmer's washable glue stick. This dries clear, which is awesome. Also have my trusty Amazon Basic shears. Again, I only use these for paper. I also have a little artist blade for some of those finer cuts and to trim up the image once I'm finished. And then I also have my trusty cutting mat just to make sure that I make those nice clean cuts and I don't ruin my already ruined table. All right, so as with all of my collages, I start with a blank canvas. I don't have any real ideas in mind of what I want to do today. It's springtime here in Edmonton and the birds are chirping, it's sunny, it's beautiful out, but it's also still freezing. So clinging to the winter while embracing the spring. So my inspiration is usually bright colors, things that are vibrant, and I think today is gonna follow much of that same sort of aesthetic. So just gonna start flipping through some magazines. Again, don't really have any plan in mind. I did go to the thrift store on the weekend and I picked up some more magazines just for a bit more variety. But let's just see what inspiration springs. So again, I'm not looking for anything in particular. The last time I did one of these, I made the video right before supper, which was a terrible idea because I spent most of the video talking about how hungry I was and how delicious everything looked. And of course, I'm starting with another magazine that has a lot of food in it. Today, I'm just flipping through, seeing what catches my eye. The spoons were kind of interesting here. Something to keep in mind. Again, with stuff like this, I'm looking at textures and ways that I can use unusual shapes in different ways. Usually the way that ideas sort of spring to life is as soon as I find a cool base image. Do I want to go for a steaky mountainscape? It's a little early for it's a little early for steak. Yeah, so I'm just looking for something that I could use as a base image that will kind of lead me in interesting directions. If I don't see something that is interesting to me, then it's not gonna give me that sort of spark. I don't know how creativity works, as I was mentioning in my other video, but these colors are just beautiful. I even like the lighter shades of the pink. I'm gonna take this out. Again, I don't know if I'm gonna use the entire image as a background or if I'm gonna slice out each individual slice of beet. Yeah, I'm trying not to go, I probably cut out about 20 pages doing that, but this is interesting. Okay, so right away I can see that if I was to use this as a backdrop, I'm cutting off a whole bunch of space that I'm gonna have to fill in with complementary things. So what I'll probably do is see if I can integrate these beets into a broader image. But already I'm drawn to the jewel tone. I'm drawn to the pattern within the beets. I like the kind of shriveled edge of it. So I'm really digging that. So let's see if we can springboard off the beets into something else. Ooh. Yeah, I'm gonna go for the raspberries here. It's not exactly the same shade, but still within that really bright red burgundy jewel tone. So already you can see that I'm gravitating towards certain colors, even similarities in shape with the little globules of the berry bulb and also just the circle of the beet. I don't know what a berry bulb is. It's just trying to describe what a giant macro raspberry looks like. These are interesting too. Again, looking at, you know, how could I make background? How can I make interesting combinations and colors? One thing I noticed right away is I already have really big raspberries. So to add really big almonds, maybe just too much of the same. I have another magazine from the same family, so maybe I'll see some similar looking imagery in here. I do like the plum. I'm gonna grab it just in case. And I tend to flip through pretty quickly. This magazine has a lot of text, but the reason I pick these up is because when it does have photographs, it's really, really bright colors. I'm wondering about the squash. So I'm always looking for contrasts of color and contrasts of shape. I do like those. I really like the ginger. Just wondering how I can integrate the ginger. Because obviously it's a root, but if I turn it on its head and make it like a branch or something with like berry leaves or berries, I'm gonna take this out. This might be the catalyst for my design. And again, with the clear kind of overlap here, once I cut it out, it's gonna be really minor. You'll barely, I mean, it'll only cover that one section. And what I could do too is just cut it off so you don't even see the lines. So that is looking pretty interesting. I'm thinking like I could do kind of a play on cherry blossoms, right? Where I have these sort of going across the page with, you know, little, I don't know, beet circles at the ends of. I'm gonna cut these out just so that I can start to get an idea of how I want the composition to take shape. And I'm gonna crop in closely, right into. The other thing I'm gonna really work on, guys, and again, with a new channel, a lot of this is experimentation and looking at videos that I've filmed and going, oh, this could be better. I tend to cut rather close into me, but I know a lot of the appeal of watching these shows is to, you know, see me making the cuts. So I either need to get better glasses and just learn to do it a bit farther away or reposition the camera. But again, I don't really want myself in the frame. So I'm gonna just make do and try to make improvements where I can. And please leave some comments in the comment box if there's things that you think I could do to improve my channel. I'm always willing to hear suggestions and, you know, critique of how things are going. Even if there's critiques of my artwork or the compositions, I'd love to hear your perspective and see how my designs are received. I mean, knowing that I'm not going to change my art or my aesthetic, but I am interested to see how people like my images. I'm always interested to see what other artists are doing as well. So if you have a channel or you have anywhere that you exhibit your art, like an Instagram, just leave it in the comments. I'd love to take a look and see what other people are working on, especially right now. It seems like everybody's creative juices are flowing. So there are some positives, I guess, to being stuck inside all day. So my hands are feeling pretty good today, not too much trouble. Luckily the edges on this are pretty defined, so it's fairly easy to cut out. It's just a lot of surface area, a lot of edges to navigate around here. What I really like about this particular root is that it has a lot of craggy bits and a lot of little offshoots and things that could potentially grow out of the little ends here. So that's something to keep in mind when you're looking for how to start building your collage. You want to look for opportunities to advance your design. So if I picked like a rock or something that doesn't really lead me anywhere, I think it would be a lot harder for me to get inspired because I can't really see it as anything other than the rock. Whereas this root, it's like, hey, this kind of looks like a tree branch. Alrighty. So I'm trying to get into the little craggy holes here. So for your sake, I'm not really going to be playing any music or anything like that. When I'm doing collages, what I am not filming myself talking. I watch TV or listen to music. I have received some comments about the musical selections on my channel, and people are like, oh, it's country, oh, it's twangy, but you have to remember that, you know, a lot of this, yes, it is for an audience, and, you know, I hope you like it, and I hope that you tune in, but a lot of this is also things to bring me joy. So when I choose that type of music, I choose it because it's something that I know that myself and my friends and, you know, other people that like that type of music would really groove on it. Some people like putting electronica and stuff to their videos, or binaural beats, or classical. For me, I want to be tapping my toes. I want to be listening to some, you know, down home style music. And keep in mind as well, because there's no commentary on those videos, you could always just turn off the sound and watch the process while listening to whatever kind of music you like. Oh. This one's really craggy. It's got a lot of bumps, but that's good because it's very forgiving during the cutting process as well. So I'm actually just going to snip off the end of the beaker there that's showing that line. And I'm actually going to slice up here as well. Okay, so this is the first one that we have, and already it looks like a root, but it also looks like a branch. So I'm just going to run with it and see where its branchiness leads me. So I have this whole other chunk here. I'm going to try to speed up the cutting, but it's cutting's one of those things that you can't really do fast unless it's all just straight lines. I want to be precise while still kind of maintaining my folky sensibility. But I also want to make sure that I have enough of the details so that when I'm done, it still looks like ginger root. And for stuff like this, I don't pull out the artist's blade. I tend to only do that if it's really, really fine cuts, or the cut is in a position that I just can't get my scissors into. This is tricky because I can't see what I'm doing. The ginger flap is in the way. The other thing I would point out is I would cut in whatever way makes you comfortable. I read in a lot of comments on other collage artists' channels that, you know, oh, you're cutting this wrong, or oh, you're not using the right technique or the right scissors or the right this, the right that. Collage is a very basic art form in that you can use whatever scissors you have, you can use whatever glue you want to use, you can use whatever medium to glue onto that you want to. So there's no shame or blame in using simple materials. I'm very big on sustainability and reusing discarded materials. So, you know, I'm not swayed by what other people think in terms of, you know, oh, I don't like this because you're doing it that way. Well, then do it your own way. Start your own channel. Teach us a thing or two. And just like there's no mistakes in collage, there's no right or wrong way to do really any art form. Everyone has their own aesthetic, everyone has their own process. And that's part of the fun of being an individual, is you get to do whatever you want. All right, so I'm just looking at this one root here and thinking how I can integrate it. Again, I'm trying to build just based on the shape of the root. I mean, I could go this way, but then it's not really going in the direction that compositionally I want it to go. As soon as I saw it, I thought, hey, it's sort of creeping up across the page. So I'll probably start this down in the bottom here somewhere, and then have another one of the roots kind of branching off. If there's sections too that don't really align, like the picture just doesn't make it into something that looks really nice, I just cut it to make it look like it was always supposed to be like that. Oh, look, it's a little knobby bit of whatever. Nobody will ever know. Well, I mean, everybody on here will know, but the public at large. Okay, so I have this craggy root. I think it looks pretty cool. What I'm gonna be on the look for now, because I'm still in the branch building phase, what I'll probably try to do is have this branch go diagonally across the page, and then have my flowers kind of sprigging off. Again, I really want to use the raspberries, may end up not using them at all. But right now, I'm just gonna go back and look at more magazines on the hunt for branch-like items, things that look flower-like but aren't really flowers. You know, I could go with building that out with actual blossoms, but I think it would be a lot more interesting if I try to use stuff that doesn't actually look like flowers, or that aren't actually flowers but look like flowers, is what I meant. While I'm going through this process as well, I'm also looking for things that could potentially be background material. That garlic's interesting. I'm actually gonna snip that. You have to forgive me, I have a sore throat as per usual. Okay, so I'm looking at this going, could that be, maybe that's a flower that's just about to bloom. It's within the right sort of shade that I want. Oh, I like the shrimp. I might actually see if I can integrate this into the background, because I really like the color. So like if there's a way that I could do the background in like these light peaches. The other thing to keep in mind is that when I look at something like this, you know, it looks like a sunrise or something like that, I'm also looking at my plan for the red color palette. So it contrasts really nicely. So if I try to build my background off of these orange tones, then when I put the flowers on top, they'll still pop. But look at how cool the detail is on the shrimp. You have some dots, some pixelation, some spackling. It just looks really interesting. So I'm gonna keep those. And again, now I have, as I've gone through, I'm now looking for brown tree-like root things. I'm looking for peachy, light orange background stuff, and burgundy, reddish, pinkish, cherry blossomy looking things. So, you know, some of the comments have been like, hey, why, like, how do you decide what you're collaging? And it's just, it lends itself to the process. With each page I turn, it's like, ooh, I could use this, or ooh, I could use that. Yeah, it builds itself. I'm just the conduit for the creativity. Okay. Let's see, I'm gonna try a house magazine. Excuse me. Even looking at something like this, you know, I could really take it easy on myself and just have, you know, something that's already a background and then build a cherry blossom off of it. It's a possibility. But when I'm looking at it, there's not really enough contrast, but I might steal that idea for another time. This looks awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna steal some of this here. Not exactly the same color, but within the same sort of palette. But more importantly, look how interesting the background looks, right? Like I could even have this particular thing here as another sort of flower grouping in the background. Yeah, so I'm excited to find that piece. Not this time. Keep that in the log for another one. There'd be more interesting stuff in here. Again, when I'm looking for something, certain magazines are really rich and other magazines are kind of meh. But when I'm doing like more architectural stuff, you know, I'd find potentially a lot of stuff in here. Okay, well, looks like the house and home stuff may not be the right type of stuff to look for today. Ooh. Well, I like the peaches. Ooh, I like that too. So I'm just looking at the peaches thinking if I could integrate that, but I'm also looking at the pattern and that it might be a little too busy. But then I'm looking at this tomato. I accidentally cut 2 slices there. I also tried to save as much of this as I could because I probably will want to use that later. The pomegranate looks cool. Let me do this one. Looking at this, these fingers, I actually like how they're kind of similar to the shrimp. I am gonna steal these, even if it's just for filler, but I actually really like kind of the similarity in the texture. It's not exactly the same color, but it's a possibility. I'm gonna use him one day. He looks just like my old cat, Orangey. Not today. I'm liking the tomato. So there's more raspberries. Just gonna take this out. I might be able to use this as kind of like the little rosebuds. Even the strawberries, maybe. I'm not sure if I'm gonna want any green in here though. Just the way that I'm thinking, I'm not sure if I want any in there. I do like the peaches. It, of course, is that peach color I'm looking for. I really like this, actually. I'm just thinking, like, I really like the way that it looks. I'm concerned that I won't be able to cut it out. But I do like how it kind of bleeds from the green to the orange, even when I just said that I wasn't sure if I wanted green in the picture. Okay, I'm gonna save this, because what I'm thinking is that I could always use it to kind of build out the background with maybe like a sunset or something, but we'll see. I'm keeping my options open. Ooh, I'll have to use this another time too. I love looking through magazines and going, oh, this is something, I can already see like how I want that to look. But I have a process right now that I'm going through, so I mean, I have been known to abandon projects like pretty close on in the beginning, but I'm liking the direction that this one is going, so I'm gonna keep on trucking. I like this here. These three. Even this one here. I'm gonna cut them out to potentially use as blossoms. I even like this one. This cake stand. I'm gonna grab that too. It's not quite the right color, but I like the shape of it. And slight variances of color. I mean, as long as they're within the same kind of palette, I don't think it matters all that much. Oh, there's a balloon. Grab that guy too. What'll probably happen is I'll accidentally snip off the little end so you won't be able to tell what it was. That tends to happen. Sorry, I just had a momentary thought with the fingers there. I think I might actually grab this. Actually, I like this part of the hand. Sort of, I don't know, something like that. I think it's a possibility. Of course, I'll cut out the purple, but I like kind of the shape of how it fills in this part of the canvas. And then I could put like little blossoms on each end, or I'm just gonna cut it out because I think I'm gonna use this. So the other thing I would say, like, don't be afraid to put the weird and wacky into your designs. Of course, I didn't go into this thinking I'm gonna have 3-4 fingers as a tree branch on my picture. Like, it never really works that way. It's more, hey, this thing looks like something that would resemble a branch. It happens to be a hand, but within the context of the picture I'm designing, it's a branch. And it's not only that, but it's from a feminine incontinence advertisement, which, I mean, nobody will ever know. And I want to get those nails because, again, it's that interest. A little bit of extra, as long as I can cut it so that it looks still like a finger. That's the plan. It's funny, I always think that, you know, my arthritis and stuff is doing pretty good until I start to cut, and it's like, oh yeah, things aren't happening the way I want them to. This is actually quite hard to cut because even though there's a contrast, it's actually hard to see on there. And I am going right into the image so that I don't have any border, which is proving not as easy as I thought. Again, no mistakes, just colorful, creative imperfections. And that's the great thing about collage, is that if you make a minor little boo-boo, you can always glue something over top, or glue it back together, or it's amazing what you can do with paper and glue, as evidenced by everyone who's made a picture out of collage. I was actually at a campfire, appropriately socially distanced campfire, with some friends last weekend and was talking about my channel and how much fun I'm having, and one of my friends said, "You mean collage like when you're in kindergarten?" Yes, it is you know, a throwback from childhood. But there's a lot of really accomplished artists that choose this as a medium, and I don't think it's any less important or viable than being someone who's really proficient at drawing or painting or sculpting. You're using a color palette in just the same way as a painter. You know, you're building your design in the same sort of way as somebody who's drawing a portrait or that kind of thing. You're just using materials that already have an existing form. This is not going as well as I had hoped. Didn't I say at the beginning of this that if it ends up still looking like fingers, it'll be a miracle? I mean, I'm doing okay, but yeah, I thought it would be easier. But never discouraged, always approaching it with humor. And again, if it looks gibbled, the ginger root looks gibbled too, so it matches. I also have no idea if I'm impacted at all by having a camera on. So it might just be stage fright, I have no idea. Okay, so my slightly gibbled half hand here is looking pretty awesome. So I'm just gonna add it here with the idea that I think that's probably where it's going to live, is somewhere kinda like that. I might even bump this up just to kind of fill out the upper part of the page. And again, if I want to have this wherever I want, I could even do it down here so that it's a little bit similar. Well, we'll see. I can play around with the arrangement, but I do like the shape it's taken. If I could, I would put cats in every picture I do. I love them. I really like her jumper. Could always make some flowers out of that, even as something on the bottom of the page to show where leaves have fallen. Might actually grab this too, since it's the same stuff. Oh, that's nice. Sometimes you see stuff that's like basically what you're trying to do, and you're like, oh, I could just cut that out and put that on there. But then that's not collage, that's just compiling. The idea is that, excuse me. The idea is that you want to create something unexpected rather than something that is expected. I'm really liking those towels. I'm just thinking. I will leave them for now. Ooh. So see, this is what I mean by looking for things that are complementary and that may look like what you're trying to create but aren't actually what you're trying to create. So I could easily go for the flowers, but if I go for the beets or the radishes instead, I'm getting something that kind of looks like a flower, but that isn't a flower. And then it matches the other beets that I may be using in the image as well. I'm gonna slice this one out because I don't want to lose any of the image. like the prickly fruit. I'm gonna grab this one too, just because it's in the right color for the background. Potentially. The other thing too is that hand might actually get lost if there's not enough contrast between it and the background. So I'm gonna play that by ear. I have some more berries. I am gonna snag those. Okay, so at this point, what I'm gonna do is take a look and see what I have. So I have my base stuff. And the idea that I have so far is that I'm gonna use these types of things as branches. And then on the branches are gonna be brightly jewel-toned burgundy-ish blossoms with a light peach sort of background. Again, I don't know if these will work because it may not be dark enough. But I'm gonna see, because I might be able to do like a darker peach down here fading into a lighter peach, and then this will stand out more, or even like peach into yellow. Yeah, so there's possibilities. So I'm not gonna cut these out yet. I'm just gonna sort of trim them down. Sort them into what I think they could be used for. So this is sort of my blossom foliage kind of pile. So I have like balloons, and see, everything's kind of in the same sort of hue, same sort of pretty pinky red jewel tone colors. Here, which I think is pretty cool. I have these fingers, which are pretty peachy. Again, this is where I'm gonna get into that conundrum of stuff that I want to use but may not be appropriate because it's the exact same color. So there wouldn't be any differentiation in value. So I'll have to see. Just gonna do a quick rough trim on this puppy here. I have tomato. These. This here. These, I'm just gonna cut in half because that's what I would do anyway. Here. Again, I'm not sure if I'll end up using the raspberries, but I really like them, so I hope there's a way that I can integrate them. Here's my beets. I'm not going to bother trimming those up because I'm still in the planning phase, so I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Okay, so I have my canvas here, and what I'm thinking is maybe having this dark orange toward the bottom, or like bubbling up. I'm just trying to think if there's enough of a contrast. This So this one for me so far is a no-go. So I'm gonna save that for another project. This is a bit better. It has a lot more tonal differentiation. Again, I think about the peachy color. Okay. So I'm going to trim some of this out just to get a better idea of what I'm looking at and also what I still need. See, I like stuff like this that's easy to cut. Makes me wonder if I should just do things on a really, really big scale, because then it would be just a whole bunch of really big cuts. But space, accessibility, plus those giant canvases are really expensive. I like the $1.50 I spend on mine. All right, so there's, I'm thinking like our sunrise type thing. There's my other Sharpie. And I'm, you know, not being exact in the way that it looks, because I mean, I don't want to spend all day cutting, but I'm trying to get as much detail as I can without driving myself crazy. I guess just trim that off, because this is probably going to be the bottom of the page. Okay. So I'm thinking something like that, with maybe like a tomato. Again, it's that little tiny bit of a different color, especially with the elements of that pale green. But there's enough of the peachy yellow to tie it together. And actually, if you take a look here tonally, you can see that there's actually a bit of pink in the skin as well, which would serve as showing reflection of, you know, the new blossoms. I mean, I know that it's supposed to be a sunset or whatever, so the blossoms wouldn't actually be reflecting off the tomato, but any sort of commonalities that you can include just help to tie it together. And even you can see that the tones in the tomato actually match a lot of the tones in the shrimp. So the branch is going to cover up a lot of this bottom area, so I wouldn't need anything too detailed. So I'm thinking something like that, with a branch and a thing with the stuff, and kind of sort of like that. So now that I have kind of an idea of what I'm thinking, I noticed that there's this whole section down here that needs that color. I know that I don't want to put the hand color under the hand, because it's just gonna fade into nothingness. So I'm gonna use this to flesh to flesh out the bottom part over here. I don't even try to be funny like that. It's just, I don't know, my husband and I love puns, and it just sometimes happens. I actually think puns are some of the most elevated humor. What's really tragic is when nobody actually gets your puns and then you're just like, well, that was wasted. Well, it looks like we nailed this one. No, okay, I'll stop. Or I won't. It doesn't matter because it's my show and I can do whatever I want. All right, so see how there's more of a contrast in the root than there was with having that bright, bright orange background. So because this is more neutral, I just love having like even the little bit of nail poking through, I think looks really cool. And like the rippliness of the skin, again, I think it looks really sweet. And again, I'm just fiddling right now, but it's not so much positioning. I mean, it is a little bit, but it's more to see what I still need. And I actually just noticed that I have to cut out another little bit of my thing here. So I missed this little section. And again, I'm not the hugest fan of, oops. Well, at least that'll give me a starting point to cut this thing. I was just gonna say that I'm not the biggest fan of the blade. And the main reason for that is that I'm pretty shaky. So like I'm taking my life into my own hands, as they say when I'm using that. Okay. So that's good enough. I don't need to get super detailed because in all likelihood, once the blossoms are on there, it'll be covered up anyway. So I'm just looking here and I can see that I have this big section here that needs something. So whether I want it to be like a prickly pear or something else, I'm not sure. But I'm encouraged with how this is looking so far. I'm thinking this will probably go up, maybe, just because then I can have more stuff in here too. Yeah, so I'm looking for another couple peach bits, and then something to fill in this part of the background. So what I'm thinking, just in terms of what a sunset looks like, it's usually brighter. I mean, the tomato is probably the sun, but as it goes out, it usually gets lighter with different colors. So I'm thinking of what I could do here to make this stand out while also not conflicting with the purples and stuff I have here. So I don't know. I'm thinking it'll pop out when I see it. Okay. Good old Canadian living. I'm gonna set my berries aside for a little while because there's no point in really cutting these out until I have my structure in my background, because I already kind of know the direction I'm going. So from there, it's just filling it in. I like the papaya. It's a little too much. I actually like the sweater too. I'll actually grab the sweater because I think this would look good underneath the root, just to fill in those last little couple of spaces. So if I try to go for that sort of buttercream color, I think I might hit it. See, this is what I'm kind of going for. The sort of bright orange fading into the more pale yellow. See, like even colors like this, it's not quite pale enough. That's my first instinct is that's the color to go with. This is also interesting though. Oh, decisions, decisions. I'm just looking at this thinking this might actually look really, really nice in behind. And again, I always cut too many pages. So I'm just looking again at that contrast, and if I can put something like this under here to kind of have that background. I think this might work actually. And then have like some more pale pinks. Thinking. I'm just gonna trim this off because I think I might end up using this. It's not the color I was going for, but as soon as I saw it, I was like, whoa, somebody else has painted for me. Yes. All right. I get questions like that too. Why didn't you ever take the time to learn to draw? Well, I can draw. Excuse me. And I can draw quite well. I just like the instant gratification of collaging because it's like, I don't know, yeah, it's hard to explain. I know I cut out peaches earlier, but I like these ones better. I'm actually just gonna grab this one. See, because like it would take me hours to draw and color a beautiful peach like that when it takes me half a second to chop it out and paste it on. So again, it's not that I can't draw. I mean, I'm not accomplished by any means, but like I do have the ability to draw some stuff. But I'm much more adept at collage. So I'm just gonna save that peach for that little spot here. And I might actually put another peach, or I'm thinking the sweater might go right there. So I think our base is pretty much done. Might as well just do that now while we're talking. And I mean, by the time I'm done, I'm hoping that people won't look at this and go, ew, a shrimp. They'll look at it and go, oh, there's a shrimp in there. And if you just heard a big crash, I have 3 cats, and they are quintessential felines who drive us absolutely crazy. But they're all lovable little schmucks, and yeah, we love them. But they're very noisy, and they keep us up. But I wouldn't trade them for anything. Especially right now, because, I mean, what friends do you have if you don't have animals? I mean, talking on the phone is different than having an actual critter here. Don't have to get too precise. Again, a lot of this background stuff is going to end up getting covered up anyway. But that fills it in a little bit. I might need another one actually. That always happens, and I still continue to do it. So don't flame me. And I apologize again for my voice. It's just the COVID has been really hard on me for working from home because everything's on teleconference. So where you would used to just walk over to somebody's desk and be like, hey, do you know the answer to this thing? Now you have to like have a meeting, and like instead of talking for 5 minutes, you're talking for half an hour. And if you do that, you know, 6 times a day, that's a lot of talking. So again, just adjustments, but I don't know if my voice will ever recover from telecommuting. But I'm very, very grateful to have that opportunity. It does have its challenges though, especially when your spouse also works from home and they're very, very loud. All right. One more peach. Again, they don't have to be perfect, just good enough. I say good enough, but that's not really what I mean. What I mean is that what I'm trying to accomplish right now is a base layer of similarly toned pictures that are hopefully visually interesting, and that will give me a background that I can really build. It's very much like being a painter, because I don't just go in and start slapping stuff together. Like, I am building it like a painter would, with the base layer, the background, getting that all set up, and then building in layers your image until you get to the point that you have the design that you want. Some collages, like the sunset songbird collage that I did, is, I mean, that probably only took me an hour and a half. But to me, it looks really visually interesting because it has textures and really interesting colors, where something like Calypso took me almost 4 hours because of the really delicate and intricate pieces that went into making that. So it just depends on the day, depends on the, see, if you take a look here, what I'm going for is similar tones. They're not exact, but there are parts of the image that do match. Excuse me. But what I'm also looking for is that gradient of texture. So like you can see the fingerprint and the texture of the skin is similar to the ribbing and texture of the sweater. All right. I'm just thinking here. I like the pink. My only concern is that it may be too much with the other pink and fuchsia elements that I'll be using. But I do like it. So I'm seriously considering it. So I'm gonna keep on looking through some magazines here. I like these. I'm gonna snip these out. Again, I think it's gonna take quite a few flower looking things to flesh out the blossoms on the branches, especially if I find another branch, which I am looking for. This little thing here. I'm just gonna steal this here, just for any of the sections of the background in the bottom part of the picture. It's the right color, just in case I need some extra filler. Just looking actually at this sweater. thinking about it. I think what I'm more looking for is like maybe a pale yellow, but I really do like the pink, so I'm kind of open. Like this color's nice. This little swirly bit here. Ooh. I think I might actually go with that pink theme because I have another big chunk here. I do like that. It's more of a subtle pink. I might layer or see if I can integrate the different pinks together. But I really like that. There's even a little bit here. This is a Christmas magazine, so I think it might have some of the right colors that I'm looking for in it. Especially with the raspberry color. There's a couple more. Not quite the right color. I know a raspberry is a raspberry, but these are more kind of red. Let's see here. Ooh, this is nice too. I'm just looking at some of these. These look like they could be things that I could add on, almost as elements of the branches. This one especially because it kind of has that last little bit of a tree look to it. some finer cuts in there, so that's gonna take a bit of time, but I do like it. A design book here. Again, I'm looking for more branch-like configurations and more blossom-looking things. So I'm just looking. Again, when I'm looking for something specific, it may seem like I'm flipping through, not finding what I'm looking for. But again, I am looking for something specific, even though it is going to be, you know, whatever the magazine presents for me. I do still have now a theme established and specific elements of that theme that I'm seeking out. So you may look at this and just think, oh, you're just flipping through and you're not really paying attention to what you're looking at, or you're flipping through too fast, so how can you even, you know, look at the page and know what you want? But right now I'm looking for branch type things, and things within that specific raspberry jewel tone. So if I'm not seeing it pretty quickly on the page, then I'm just gonna flip right through. And it may happen that I go through a whole magazine and don't find what I'm looking for, which happens sometimes. I'm gonna dig into some other magazines. Let's go back to a food magazine. Maybe there's something here. Coming back to the garlics, I do like these. I just wish they were more defined. They're kind of all overlapping, but I do like this too. I'm thinking. food magazines might be a bit better for what I'm looking for today. But I seem to be kind of hitting a dead end. I'm even wondering if like strips of bacon might work. Might be the right texture and consistency. We'll see here. Okay, well, I'm not finding what I'm looking for, so I'm just going to take a break and revisit what we have here and start to think about my composition more. So I have these pinky bits here to kind of integrate. I'm wondering even if I could, Again, I'm just thinking out loud. Okay, so what I'm gonna do first, before I get too far ahead of myself, is cut out this branch here. This. Just kind of trying to rearrange it and just see like where I'm at. We have this sweater with this kind of lower top. So I still have some gaps in terms of that yellowish color. Or the flesh tone color. And then I'm trying to decide, because I do like that, I just don't think it's enough of a contrast. So if I put something like the yellowy color, no. We have the sweater I could do. Then again, it's still not hitting the right spot. And then I have this, which I think might be the winner. So I'm just gonna trim off this part here. See where that lands me. And because I want to keep this beautiful sweeping, but I also need to sort of cover in this space here. Kind of have to fudge it a little bit. I can even kind of sweep it in or integrate it in there somehow. I'm just trying to think of how I can kind of integrate the two sides here. Again, some of this might be covered up, so I'm not as concerned, but I also want it to, match up as well. I don't want it to look like it's out of place. And see, I have that little bit of pink in here, so if there's a way I can kind of flow that in somehow. So again, this is the fun and exciting part of collage, right? If something's not working or something's not fitting, I'm at the mercy of my imagination to kind of make it work, right? Soften up the edge. Again, I'm still looking for those little bits of interest that I can add. If you hear snoring, it's not my husband, it's actually my cat. Who's going at it pretty loudly right now. So even those lines almost look like branches. So once everything's overlaid, it should blend in fairly well. All right. Well, I think this is a good starting point for the background. And now when I put the hand over here, it looks good. Over here, it's a little bit more of a contrast. So I'm trying to decide which side to go on. I think I'm gonna do my original plan and keep it over here. And then I'm gonna put this branch here more sort of down here, I think. And maybe a little bit of snaky action over here. I just like the texture of its skin. It might not be dark enough, but I'm gonna just give it a try. See if that'll fit in here. Branch it off up over here, maybe. Thinking it's not quite the right color. I really want something to match this brownish color. All right, so while I'm still on the hunt for, I have the background done, pretty much. Again, I have some other pieces of complementary sort of background shades, so that if there's any sections in here that I want to change up or that aren't aligning, I can always add a little bit of this to make it match. I'm just looking at this here. It might be a better integration to go something up here. I don't know. Thinking. But I'm gonna keep this aside because I may use that. And what I'm gonna do now is just take a minute to look at some of the other elements we have. So I have some additional branch type stuff. Not gonna need this stuff here. I have this little flowery little thing, which I think would be a nice little cherry blossom. So I'm just gonna cut that out now. Try to do my best. Into a round-ish, what is it, like an oblate spheroid or whatever? That's what I'm going for. All right, so that's our first little cherry blossom. So I'm gonna start trimming out some of the other stuff we have. So one of the things that I am thinking I do want to incorporate are these. So I want to pick out the ones that are whole. So only the ones that have the full blossom. What I might end up doing too is collaging other elements on this. Like I might put a raspberry in the center or something. I haven't quite decided. But once I get sort of that base element, I'll be able to go from there. So what I need to decide is how big I want them to be. So I have quite a big canvas that I'm starting with, but I also have these different rings. So I really could go as small as I want. So I want to see in proportion to the rest of the picture, if I leave them whole, how big are these going to be? So I think I'm going to leave them the size that they are. And if I decide later that I want to trim them down, I can always do that. And again, I'm just going to do like a really rough cut right into the image, but also not really being too concerned about perfection because the edges of the beets are already really kind of ripply, which is one of the reasons that I chose them as well, because I want them to look like petals. I want them to look like organic and part of the tree. But I also don't want to have to cut a perfect circle if I don't absolutely have to. There's just a little blemish on the page. Chop that out. So what are your favorite colors? When you're designing, are there colors that you naturally gravitate towards? I like all colors, personally. You know, feel free to leave in the comments below what your favorite color is, or when you're flipping through a magazine, what color are you drawn to? You know, I keep saying that this is kind of like a choose your own adventure, but it really is. And, you know, if I see something that will lend itself to being complemented with a nice berry shade, then, you know, for the rest of my project, I'm going to be attracted to things that are within that berry color. Some days I might want to go for a more muted palette, where I'm seeking out different shades of grays and lighter pinks and things like that. So it all depends on the picture for me. In terms of what looks best on me, it's definitely jewel tones. They're easy to coordinate too, with black especially. Oops. No major oops, just a little oops. A little squirrel took a chomp out of that beet chip. All right, so here's my beet chips, and I'm not gonna start really positioning them so much yet, but I just wanna get a sense of the direction that I'm going. So if I start putting, you know, beet chips on the hands or on different parts of the picture, how is it looking? I like the way that it's going. I think what I'll probably end up doing is cutting some of them down just so there's some differences in the shape, but I'm not going to do that yet because I think it's going to be dictated by where they're positioned on the page, but I have a good starting point for that. So I also have a little pine cone that's been painted. Oops. Just trying to concentrate. Doesn't have to be perfect, but I do want it to look still like a pine cone, but also like a flower. I have this little curly Q. Looks like a little rosebud almost. I like when I can find within the same picture duplicates, because it brings that level of consistency to your image. I mean, I have done lots of pictures where there are no duplicated images and it's all unique. But I do like having a few things in there that are the same, just to bring that continuity and cohesion to the picture. Oops. And again, these cherry blossoms, they're not exactly the same deepness of color, but even when you look at the shading inside the beet, there's that lighter sort of dusty pink, so it falls into that palette. All right, I'm just gonna look through some of my stuff here and make sure that I didn't lose all my stuff. Not as organized today as I normally am. Just kind of winging it. All right. So the pomegranate, I don't want to use the entire thing because it's way too big. So I'm going to trim it down a little bit. But the most interesting part of it for me is the stem. So I'm going to kind of make my own fruit out of the stem and just maybe like a smaller kind of circle. So it looks almost like a rose hip. There we go. So I've created this weird little palmer fruit that's actually kind of a rose hip. There. So out of a pomegranate, I got a little spiky thingy. It's pretty cool. Now I have these glasses. This one's only a partial one. I might be able to work with that. I'm gonna cut it off anyway, just in case I can use it. Because even though it's not complete, I might still be able to use it on the edge of a picture, but it has that floral kind of look to it, so it'll integrate nicely. This one's not quite as interesting, so I'm not going to use that one. But I do like these ones. Another little piece. The garlic I really like. I wish I could find more that were kind of just standalone little garlics like this, because it really matches what I'm going for. I'm gonna leave a little bit of the tail. There we go. So if I turn this upside down, then it can be a little sprout of something. It could even be like a little mushroom or something like that. That I'm gonna save. The scale's not right, so I'll save that for later. Again, I went into this initially wanting to use these as a major component of the picture, but as it's building out, the scale isn't right. So I'm gonna save these, set them aside for another time, and use them later. Again, another image I could use more on the side. Oops. But I really love the detail of the crystal and the differences in light and color with the pattern of the glass. I think it's really cool. Okay, a balloon. I'm actually going to do a very fine border on this one, just so that you can still tell that it's a balloon. I think you could probably still tell just based on the lighting and how the lighting is hitting the object, but I'm scared I'm gonna ruin it. It's like, it's one of my great faults is that I'm always like, oh, I just want to make it perfect, and then I end up like fudging it and all of that. So I think I'm only going to leave a little border just on the bottom. It just looks really crappy, which is, sometimes you have good ideas, but the execution is just, it's okay. I want it to work. Well, it was a good effort. Well, this is what I'm left up with. Oop. So I'm gonna still use it. Kind of looks like a balloon. I did my best. I really like the image, so I'll save that one for another time. These I really like because they have just that kind of sunburst look to them. So what I'm looking for first is the ones that are whole and complete. I might even do a double on this one. These ones, again, they don't have to be full, complete circles because a lot of times you'll end up overlapping things. So even if you can get most of a circle, you may be able to overlap it and build out your picture that way. Circles are my nemesis, but they're also the most fun to cut. Maybe that's why I always end up taking off way too much, because I'm just like, wee, oh no. I have a whole bunch of these little, I believe they're radishes, either that or something like a candy cane beet, but I think they're radishes. But I love the pattern of them. All right, now we have our raspberries, the little raspberries. The big ones are just too macro for this particular application. Don't think I'm going to do strawberries in this one, but I do really like these raspberries. Maybe blueberries. I don't know if it's going to match really what I'm going for, but I'm going to set them aside just in case I end up wanting that additional contrast. Oops. Missed one. I like the ones that look really raspberry-like. Like this one even is just a little nondescript. I like the ones that show the shading. All right. Again, raspberries have a nice bumpy skin, so that makes it way easier. we go. So that all falls within that same burgundy shade. Actually going to ditch this one, and I'm actually going to ditch, sorry, this one, because once I cut it out you won't be able to know what it is. These ones have the holes, so it's like, oh yeah, that's a raspberry, where the other one's just like, oh, that's a red blob that's poorly cut out. So I want it to be still identifiable. Sorry, I'm just trying to concentrate. It actually is harder to collage and talk than you would think. I didn't think it would be hard, but it is definitely different. Especially because this is such an independent hobby. You don't really talk while you're doing it. You're kind of just into it, you know? Wonder if I'll get any visitors on this particular video. I've had lots of interest in my cats and the type of rascals they are and how much they jump on the table while I'm trying to film. I don't mind, actually. I like having my one cat, Bella, the brown one. She jumps up and she'll lay on top of the magazines and just hang out. It's nice to have company. Alright, one more berry, and then I think we might start. I would still like to find one more branch, like one more good size branch. I'm thinking maybe like a fork or like a spatula or something that I could maybe use as a fork, or I mean use as a branch. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see what we find. So I'm going to trim off these two as well. I am definitely going to integrate these. I really like the shape and how they look. And I'm going to try to be really delicate because I want to retain the coolness of the shape and everything. It's not easy. It's actually really hard. And I would get out the knife, but I would just ruin it. So it's not going to be, like I said, that fine art with like the perfect trimmings, but it'll be enough that you can see what it was and also what it hopes to be. I'm just going to try to trim this off. And I'm scared. There may not be mistakes in collage, but there's definitely fear of chopping off a beautiful little curly swirl at the wrong time. Oops. There we go. Yay. Okay, now I only have to do that 4 or 5 more times and we're set. These ones aren't as bad. And again, this is a sculpture or a light fixture that I'm trying to turn into part of the tree. Part of the branch. And this is actually turning out pretty good. So I am stoked. Alrighty. So there's that little chunk. Turned out pretty well. Now this one's going to be way easier to cut. All right, so there's the little acorn looking thing. Okay, so the next thing I'm gonna do is take some time to try to find a branch. So I'm just gonna take a look in some of my other magazines here. And I don't wanna lose those, so I'm just gonna cover them up. Mat, just so they don't all blow away. Going for another home magazine, mainly because there's often a lot of landscape scenes. This is interesting. Again, that color to me is a lot closer than the snake was. I'd love to find some lamps or light fixtures that would have, that would look like a berry or something. This looks interesting. That's interesting too. And I'm just looking to see how some of the stuff I picked out could integrate. This one looks like it's a good match. It's a palm tree trunk. It doesn't have to be an exact match, but I want it to be that same sort of dark tone so that it stands out from the background. was thinking of some way that I could better integrate the hands into the branch. And I thought, well, stairs might be an interesting idea. Something kind of I can always trim it down. I'm just thinking of ways that I could get it to kind of match up. Oh, yeah, kind of like that, because it has kind of the gradient of that same flesh tone going in there. Okay, I'm gonna look for one more kind of something to go here, and then I think we're gonna start gluing. Even hair might be something. Okay, ears. Just looking at the pattern of the hair and trying to see like how I can make it look sort of like the bark of a tree. Just trimming off some of that really dark shaded hair, just because it's not quite the right color. Something like that. Just going to sort of trim it to look like a branch. Again, because I'm using something that's not what it is for what I want, I'm taking creative license to just trim it into the shape of a branch. So I'm trying to use the flow of the hair to create that branch-like stalk, with the understanding that I'm creating a branch out of hair, right? So it's never gonna look exactly like a branch. It just has to look enough like a branch that people go, oh, that looks like a cherry blossom twig or whatnot. Okay, so I think what I'm gonna do now is take a short break, and then we're gonna come back and start the gluing.